So I'm watching my mom's cats this week, and I was over there trying to take care of them, and I couldn't find the one cat. And finally, I opened the door to the closet, and there the cat was. Cat is fine, cat is healthy, but the cat spent 2 days locked away without food and water. I somehow think that cat still had a better 2 days than the Cleveland Guardians have had.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I want to reiterate Mitty, the giant kitty. He is a huge cat. Is fine. He got lots of pets, got lots of water. I was there to take care of him. I'm going to go over tomorrow and hang out with him again. He is fine. And I can also tell you
we are not fine.
We are not fine. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Oh boy, we got a lot to go over in this one, and nothing really good about it, unfortunately. If you're looking for a positive spin, like we normally try to get,
I've got a few. I've got a few things that I can pull that are positive. I will say that.
So people who usually accuse Jeff of being negative, he's got the positive. I don't feel a whole lot of positive here. I got to be honest. We got to talk about the early pull of Tanner. The Guardians had chances against Caracol. I guess that's a positive, but they didn't come through. We'll talk about that. Jose Ramirez kind of on a milk carton in this series, and Guardians
in
are not
every
playing
playoff series. If we're being honest with Jose, I got to say, just top it all off. I had someone, one of our everydayers seems like, well, I don't know if he's everydayer because dropping him by DM seems like a nice dude to complain about the intros. I'm like, come on, people. How many times do I have to say it's network mandate? I think like once a month, I'm going to have to add that to the intros. So Locked On wants us to do intros. I am sorry that we have intros. I am Jeff Ellis. I used to write about baseball at Scout and 24/7 as a national job. Now I talk about baseball on here and was one of the first people Scout brought in to do this, or Scout Locked On brought in to do this.
I'm Justin Ladd. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007, and I've been doing it at places like Guardians Baseball Insider and the Morning Journal, the News Herald, all that fun stuff. And here now with you for over 2 years. I don't know. I guess we'll find out more after the game. We're recording this and the game's not over, but it's 6-2. So
it's over, but it's not over.
Yeah. So there's really no sense in us waiting because newsflash, we have day jobs and we're trying to put out a good product for people, but we're also trying to keep our lives in somewhat order during the postseason. But so Tanner Bibee out of the game after less than 2 innings. He got 4 outs. And he did not look happy about it. And quite frankly, I don't blame him. He got 4 outs. He had to get
struggling a bit.
He had to get 4 outs in the first inning, first of all.
Yeah.
Rocchio left him out to dry on that drop pop-up. He was out of that inning. Tanner did a great job of escaping. There was only 1 run because the inning should have been over anyway. Mm-hmm. And then in the second inning, the issue was he wasn't missing any bats in the third inning.
Couldn't get the whiff. Couldn't get those whiffs there.
Yeah, so Anthony Volpe gets a bloop single there. That not a real strong hard hit ball, but then Rizzo and Verdugo come back and touch him up for a couple of hard hit balls, and then that was the end of the line. And he wasn't thrilled about it. And I don't blame him. This was the one game they talked about. Tanner was going tonight, and they did have a rested bullpen. This should have worked out well for them. And they pulled him really early. The only thing I could think of, and doesn't sound like we'll find out more later, but Tom Withers from Associated Press is the only one that put this out there, and he said that Tanner will be available out of the bullpen later in the series. I have to imagine if Tom is saying that, unless he's just kind of saying, well, that's what I'm assuming. He didn't say he's assuming. He said that. So I'm assuming he hurt.
I think that's assumption. Because it's nowhere else. And I like Tom, but Tom doesn't break news on the Guardians all that often. He's not one of the 3 guys who's first with info. I feel like that was more assumption. And, the little bit we have heard.
Good if he did.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't worded to be presumptive. It was worded as if he had heard this as fact. And I hope that's the case because that would mean that there was some sort of pregame talk with Tanner about the plan for tonight and to maybe not push him as far as they could because they had arrested big part of the bullpen from off Monday and then off Wednesday. So you could go to them early if you needed to.
Sounds like that wasn't the case though.
Yeah. We don't know for sure at this point when we're recording this. So we don't know for sure.
with the way Tanner looked when he came out, that is not someone who had been talked to about this being an idea. That was not the
Yeah,
face of someone who had had that discussion.
I don't want to make any assumptions about it because we just don't know. We haven't heard
Yeah.
the explanation at the time we've said this. The only idea I can think of here is you pull him there because part of the plan was to have him available in Game 5, and part of that might have been because of the Alex Cobb injury. You know, Cobb was supposed to go Game 5. Maybe you thought about making this a shorter outing for Bibee so he could be available Game 5, and that meant a certain pitch count in this one. And unfortunately, things kind of got off track in the second inning because Rocchio
Bottom of the lineup struck,
first,
and the Rocchio situation.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll find out more on Tuesday after the game and Wednesday, I'm sure. But if Cleveland did not do a good job of communicating what the plan was for this game for Tanner, and there was some sort of miscommunication about hey, we're going to take you out early because we want you available for Game 5. We have a rested bullpen. This is the idea. You got to communicate that before the game if that's what you're going to do.
I don't think that was there.
I know.
I think it was just. I think it was a reaction. I think this was all like, like we got guys on base, Soda's up, and a degree of the manager being like, I get it. He did not treat Tanner like the team's ace, right? He treated him like a starter you're not sure can get through these moments, and he just yanked him early. And yanked him very early. And I don't think this was part of an overreaching plan. I don't think this was a plan to get him back in Game 5. I think it was a manager. I don't know if people will say like, hey, some people say, and because they mostly got out of it, that he made the right decision there. Now, the fact that he made that decision led to runs later in the game because you had to rely on less reliable relievers. So it's like, was the knee-jerk reaction the right one? I don't know. Because yes, in the moment it is, but because of that, you go to Sabrowski maybe too early. Gaddis is gassed. Like you get 3 runs later. So maybe it wasn't the right move at all. But based on Tanner's face and based on what happened there, I do not think this was a plan. I do not think at all this was a plan. I think this was a knee jerk, and him. It reminds me of game, when I got frustrated in Game 2 of the ALDS, when it seemed like knee jerk quick reactions, trying to get an advantage that maybe wasn't there.
That's what I was trying to say, was that hopefully that was the plan and it just wasn't communicated to them, because the idea should be now to bring him back in Game 5. That's what I was trying to say, is hopefully now they did that, was to do that so he can be available in Game 5. The problem is you didn't communicate that before the game. And like you said, you pulled him early. And if he didn't understand why that was happening, he's mad. And I understand why he's mad. Then you lose the trust of your best pitcher and the guy you were relying on here to be the best starter in the series for you, and take the weight off of the bullpen so they're available in other games on a heavier workload. But you didn't do that. And again, like I said, I'm not going to make any assumptions. Like we can look at body language all we want. I'm going to wait until we hear words and see what happens. And if it comes back and they say, well, we didn't, there was no communication on that, and the plan is to bring him back in Game 5, that's fine and dandy, but you got to tell them that beforehand, what your idea is here. And here's the other thing of this too. You can't tell, you don't want to go into the game telling your ace, hey, if you get in trouble in the second or third inning, we're pulling you. Because why are you telling your ace, well, we're thinking you're going to get in trouble early? You don't do that. You could plan for that on your own end, I suppose, but you can't tell your ace that before the game anyway. Like, I can't imagine, for all the things we find Aaron Boone a little bit annoying, quite frankly. You can't have Aaron Boone going out there to Garrett Cole or Carlos Rodon. I shouldn't say Cole, because Tanner hasn't quite earned the Garrett Cole treatment yet. Jose just went yard. He's 63 now, but that's something. Tanner hasn't quite earned Garrett Cole status, but like, you can't. Aaron Boone's not going to tell Rodon, hey, if you struggle in the second and third innings, we're yanking you. You're just not going to put that out there to him. You're going to show confidence in before the game, but you have to find a way to communicate with him what the plan is. And hopefully they did some version of that. And if they didn't, that's on them. And I understand wanting to make him available to come back in Game 5 because of this Cobb situation, whatever. But you have to communicate in a way without putting that negativity out to Tanner. Because again, if you communicate to him like that, you're going to show lack of trust, but you also showed lack of trust by yanking him. So it's a tough communication spot. And you hired Stephen Vogt to be a good communicator. And it kind of seems like one way or another, he probably failed in the situation. And in the long run, is this really going to cost them the series? Probably not. It's still a bad decision because maybe they would have lost anyway. And also push back here a little bit too. You mentioned that you had to go to lesser relievers. Hunter Gaddis gave a 2-run homer to Judge. You were always going to go to Hunter Gaddis no matter what at some point in this game. So lesser relievers didn't cost you this game. It was your defense, your hitting, and Hunter Gaddis just didn't get it done there. It wasn't because of lesser relievers.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like I said, I think you and I are miscommunicating a little. Like, I don't think there was a plan. I think it is going to be a happy accident. And now they're going to say, well, we're going to go to him in game 5 because he didn't pitch much. I don't think that was the plan. The plan was for him to go deep into this game. I think anything else is something they're going to say after the fact. I don't think there was a distinct plan is kind of my point. I think that it is just something they'll say afterwards. And it's like, you went to Sobrowski, that cost you a run. Yeah, the other stuff affected it, but he said going to Gaddis they've gone to, it's kind of the problem though too, where they've gone to all these guys too much. And we're seeing like Heron look great today, but the heavy use, even in the postseason more, is making this harder for the guys just aren't looking as sharp. And I mean, let's be honest. It's like, yeah, they got 3 runs now. It comes down to like I said, I've got positives.
To win in Yankee Stadium.
No,
so.
and it's like, and like I said, I will get to the positives in segment 2, but like they were able to string together some things, but they just, whenever guys got on base, they didn't get the big became hit. And none of those guys produced then.
Yeah, we'll talk a little about the offense. We'll talk about some of those moves. There's also one more reliever we need to talk about. And we just got to talk about the Guardians defense too, because the Guardians defense let them down in this game. And that's not something they have done much of this year. But when they do make defensive miscues, somehow they always wind up coming back to bite them. And it sure did in this one. What will not come back to bite you is getting $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. NFL fans, get the season started. Keep it going with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You get a hunch in the middle of the game. You think Jose Ramirez is going to hit a 9th-inning home run. If you think some quarterback that doesn't play for the Browns is going to throw for a touchdown in the 4th quarter. Hey, Josh Allen just got another great receiver in Buffalo. Maybe he's going to turn things around a little bit. I know I have Josh Allen on my fantasy team. He's kind of struggled a little bit this year. An extra receiver could really help him. So maybe I'm going to get a hunch that Josh Allen's going to throw a touchdown pass to that new receiver. You can check the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Place that first $5 bet and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You don't even have to win. Just place your first $5 bet on FanDuel and get $200 to play with and keep going. That's FanDuel.com. Check out our pal Sully over at Lockdown MLB for things that won't cause you pain, because Sully is funny and he's good at getting through on these things. And he probably will talk Guardians-Yankees. I'll be honest, probably will. So maybe you're not looking for more of that, but I promise you, Sully is funny, insightful. He's always got a good trivia question. You always learn something from listening to him. I always do. Check him out over at Lockdown MLB, part of the Lockdown Podcast Network. Your team, all the teams, every sport, every day. Even if you want to get away from baseball, we got something for you over on the network. Before we get to the offense, Jeff, let's just quickly point out the Eli Morgan thing, because that was good. That was a silver lining, I guess, was Eli pitched well. And I thought it was a little strange that he came out after 6 pitches. Who did he get out there in that inning? He got, it was Judge, Wells, and Stanton he got out. I was stunned. Not that I doubt. I mean, Eli has been really good for over a month now. But that's a big spot for Eli, and he was fantastic. And then I thought, okay, he'll come out and he'll face Chisholm and Volpe, and you'll go to Sobrowski for Rizzo and Verdugo because they struggle with lefties. You pull him after 6 pitches with an off day tomorrow, and you force Sobrowski to go through Chisholm and Volpe. Doesn't work out. And they end up allowing a run. He gets beat by Rizzo, of all people, which Anthony Rizzo hasn't swung a bat in over a month until Monday because of his fingers. He had 2 hits on Monday. He had 2 hits in this one, and he beat a lefty, of all things. Anthony Rizzo was terrible most of the season. He is on the back end of his career. He hasn't hit lefties in forever. And he beat Sobrowski. And Sobrowski, you want to know what? Sobrowski was going to face him anyway there. But You put him in against 2 batters before that. You could have waited so he just had a one-on-one matchup with those 2 guys. But again, that's also the story of these first 2 games. Like, yeah, Aaron Judge wound up hitting a home run in this one, and Soto homered on Monday. But Rizzo and Verdugo had 3 hits, and Gleyber Torres had 3 hits. You can't have 8, 9, and 1 getting on base consistently like that in front of Judge and Soto and Judge. The bases have to, if you're going to win this series, if you're going to beat the Yankees, you've got to have the bases empty in front of Soto and Judge, and they didn't do that. But the pull on Eli there was for considering how they managed this game, to pull Eli that quickly seemed very odd.
Yeah, it's surprising. Eli's been very good of late. That last outing against Detroit, we talked about how good he's been and how you sent me an article about how Luke Weaver has been so good because he throws pitches that are kind of split agnostic. And, the change for Eli is such a weapon. For Sabrowski, that's now, back-to-back outings where he's given up a run. Like maybe they're, he's a useful player to have. I don't know if maybe he's getting a little overexposed through use here, but I don't know. You need depth, right? Like they had to go to Lively, which takes away potentially a potential starter for game 4. We assume it's going to be Gavin Williams now. We'll have to see what they do. I mean, they don't have a ton of options, but that's for, a day down the road. But he threw 6 pitches. And he's been so good all year. Like it's just weird to yank him there. Like you need the depth, you need his performance. He is the guy. Yeah, you need that length. And instead they yanked. Like it was just odd. It was one of those really odd calls in this game. I didn't understand it. I mean, I understood it from the whole perspective of they needed the lefties are coming up, but bottom of the Yankees lineup has been killing them. Like, and when you look at just against all these guys, they've struggling so much until this series, and Cleveland's just not. It's the same problem they had in Detroit, the bottom of the lineup, and yeah, I can't believe. I just don't understand. Like I said, I understand the why. I'm getting repetitious here, so I'm going to stop. But let Morgan cook. Let him have that opportunity. Save some depth. You don't have to show the Yankees every arm you have in the second game of the series.
Yeah, and I guess on the other hand of that, I guess if you show Morgan to 5 hitters, maybe you think that's something too. I don't know. You're off on Wednesday, and you needed to stretch the game as long as you could at that point. And again, if Gaddis was always going to give up a home run to Judge, then it didn't matter because you were going to have to use him in any given spot where you were winning or whether you were tied, whatever. So it didn't matter. And the other problem here is too, like, we didn't get a chance to really mention it because there was so much to try to go through. But we talked about if they get on base, having a chance to run the bases because Wells doesn't throw out runners well, and if Trevino is in, he doesn't do that. They're not running the bases.
No.
But they're also not playing good defense. I mean, so how does it get more ironic than Brian Rocchio being nominated for a Gold Glove, which, let's be honest, Gold Gloves are kind of a weird sham sometimes anyway. But on the day he's nominated for a Gold Glove, he makes an error. And as we've talked about before too, Jeff, Rocchio doesn't make a ton of errors, but when he does, they always somehow find a way to blow up. And this one cost them a run. It cost Tanner 7 extra pitches in the first inning. Mm-hmm. Might have led to his early exit.
Might have affected the whole game from there. Like,
and
get the first run on the board.
And it might also affect the relationship with the Guardians and their ace too. Like, I'm sure Tanner will be fine, but it's like, I don't know. You worry about that relationship right there, making that call. But I'm sure they'll hash it out. But like, that has so many ripple effects. It's just so insane that one error, like I said, Rocchio nominated for a Gold Glove, and he makes that big error right away, and it ends up having a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
And then Will Brennan makes an error. Should have been 2 errors, and he's...
Well, again,
I know he had a big play in this one. I know he had a huge play to limit the damage, but it's like, you can't make 2 errors against the Yankees and expect to win. They gave him how many extra outs? They gave him how many extra base runners on game 1? You can't give them... And the Yankees gave you back 2 free base runners, too, with bad base running. You had too many chances to blow away again. This is turning into game 1 again, where you had chances to win this game and you shot yourself in the foot And it's more frustrating that you probably could have stolen one of these 2 games, but you took yourself out of it.
I don't think they could have, honestly, even if they don't make the errors because they didn't score enough runs. Like, bottom line is, like, even if they play a clean game, it's maybe in this one there was a chance, but like, even you get rid of it, they're just not doing enough offensively. It's like, great, Josh had 2 base hits, but when there was a guy on base, he couldn't do it. Jose had the home run, fantastic. When the bases were loaded, that's when we need them to have their singles, have their home runs. That's what carried them through the ALDS was Lane Thomas with the 2 huge home runs. They're just not doing that. And then, like, I mean, you got a mess in the outfield, let's be honest, because Brennan and Noel both look lost at the plate. They pulled Bo Naylor early to put in Fry against a righty. He's been awful. I know everyone, and I saw the comments for the show. Everyone's like, you can't pull Fry because that having Fry against a righty is innately. And I said, I don't hate this move because Naylor's been so bad and they don't have a better option, but Fry versus a righty it's a failure of your bench. Like, having that, like, he was bad against righties the second half, like legitimately a below average hitter. It was results over process. He hit that home run over Brisky, and I'll take it. But you can't let that shade the fact that he spent 2 months being mostly unable to touch a right-hand bat. And that's what they had to bring in that situation. Brennan's been a mess. Naylor's been a mess. I would have rather almost see Angel on this roster than Noel or Schneemann or even Brennan. Like, they're just offensively, they had a ton of guys on. They had a lot of opportunities, and they had productive outs. Like, that's the positive thing. I've been screaming for weeks about productive outs. They had them in this game, but when push came to shove, they got knocked over.
Yeah, we'll talk about the offense a little bit here in a second, and not playing guards ball. The Guardians had 1 inning sort of where they had a chance to play sort of guards ball offensively, and they did not play guards ball. I don't know what the opposite of guards ball is. There's no hashtag for it. Whatever it is, you probably can't say it to your mom or your grandma or in church. One of those things. More of that coming up. Check out our friends over at Game Time. If you're looking for MLB playoff tickets, because why wouldn't you, right? Why not and subject yourself to a little more anxiety and pain and misery? Maybe you want to be there, though, just for the sake of being there. Coming up when the Guardians come home, or maybe you want to get World Series tickets because the prices for those were quite outrageous too. Where the prices aren't as outrageous is when you use Game Time, because the prices on the Game Time app go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They have last minute killer last minute deals, and they have all in pricing too. So you're not putting a ticket in your shopping cart and it says one price and you get to checkout, it says another. No, if you turn on the all in pricing, it'll tell you exactly what you're paying to get into the game, get into the concert, get into the show, whatever it is. And Game Time has the lowest price guarantee as well. Takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Then terms apply. But again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off that first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Now we got to talk about our friends at Prize Picks. So Prize Picks has so many different fun deals and things going on. I'm currently on the Prize Picks site, and right now one of the hottest, more or less ones they have is Anthony Edwards. And this is not until he faces the Lakers at 9 p.m. And it looks like it says in 7 days. And why is this such a great one? Because it's that he's going to score half a point. Anthony, if you think, Ant can get 1 point in a basketball game, that's an auto win. And with Prize Picks, you are picking more or less in 2 to 6 stat categories. And they've, just come up with flex play. So you don't even need to win all 6 to get paid. So you always want to go. It's a Taco Tuesday, so maybe that's why Anthony Edwards is so supremely discounted. You just need one other, and guess what? You're going to hit a payout. So right now, sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So I'm going to tell you right now, head to the website or use the app. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first 5. Again, download the app, go to the website, use that code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 free after you play your first 5. Prize Picks, run your game.
take a break from the Guardians on Wednesday. Thursday, they're back in action at 5:08 first pitch. You can check that out on your SiriusXM app. You can also check out Mets Dodgers tonight on your SiriusXM app as well. That's game 3. That'll be interesting to see how that series turns out because the Mets did punch back in that one and took that one home 1-1. We'll see how the Mets do at home. If there was going to be a time for guards ball in game 3, it was going to be the 4th inning. You had Josh getting a base hit. Lane Thomas had was a squib infield hit there in that 4th inning, I think it was. And then you went to Fry for Bo Naylor with runners on there. And I understand the move going to Fry there. I think it was the right call given what you had in that situation. The problem it leaves is it's the 4th inning. You are putting Fry in against the righty. It's not ideal. It's just the best option you have at that time, quite frankly. But then you had to have Austin Hedges in the rest of the game. And he came up with a big spot later in the game, which isn't a shock. And this is where David Fry's elbow injury factors in because he could have caught after that pinch hit appearance if he was healthy. He wasn't. And we'll go into that more in detail in the offseason when the Guardians give us more information on what we're expecting. And I don't even blame. I know there are some people who are mad about David Fry swinging at the first pitch because Andres Gimenez walked on four pitches at bat before. So maybe you want to take the first pitch the next at bat. I do understand that. Thinking back on it too, I kind of wonder, did Garrett Cole just say, well, we'll see if Gimenez gets himself out because he does that pretty well sometimes. And we're not scared of facing Bo Naylor because he's literally done nothing at the plate all postseason long. And they pinch hit Fry there. So maybe that was part of Cole's thinking because later on they did that to Gimenez because Hedges was coming up. And maybe they did the same thing with Bo Naylor. Maybe they had no respect for Bo Naylor and they thought in that situation, we'll just let Gimenez get himself out and he doesn't. We'll get Bo Naylor out because he has no chance. They maybe weren't expecting David Fry to come in there. And for what it's worth, again, doesn't matter now. For what it's worth, Garrett Cole this year, on the first pitch of the at-bat, hitters are hitting 349, 364, 814 slugging with 6 homers. Nobody else, there's no other pitch in the account that hitters are doing that to on Garrett Cole. That is your one chance to ambush him. And David Fry got a fastball. He pulled the trigger. I don't blame him for that. Garrett Cole is a good battle-tested pitcher for a reason. He got the fastball into a spot that made it hard for Fry to do anything with. It didn't work out. I know, again, people are going to take issue with him swinging at the first pitch after a walk to Gimenez, but I think it's the right move, to be honest. And then, Rocchio, who's been great offensively all postseason, came out with the bases loaded and took a called strike 3. I know he had a long
great at bat
there. It was great
at bat. You got to swing.
Yeah. On a 2-strike count, that pitch in that spot, you had to swing. They had chances in this game. They had multiple chances. And the problem is, Hedges came up with the bases loaded at 1.2. And of course, nothing was going to happen there because they walked 2 minutes to get to him. And here's the other thing about this too. Jeff, you were texting about productive outs. With the bases loaded, you had a sac fly from Josh Naylor and you had a RBI ground out from Will Brennan. That's all fine and well. But this, again, is the problem with this offense. When you have the bases loaded against the Yankees and Garrett Cole and nobody out, your only runs can't be productive outs. You have to slug at that spot. You have to hit a home run. You need a double. 1 sac fly is fine. 1 RBI ground out is fine. You can't have both. Somebody has to come through with the hit. You cannot just rely on productive outs because that was essentially their last opportunity of the game. Jose had a home run in the 9th. Didn't matter. We have to talk about Jose, but this offense can't just be productive outs. When you have the bases loaded like that, you've got to
have multiple times. Like it's you need to get 1 hit out of it. I just want to throw this out there. Like I know this is so much doom and gloom, but like they're in the ALCS. Like it's a tough matchup, and I think what makes this one hard is it was close and there were opportunities. In the first game, it's the same story. Like they just needed a little bit more, but only 4 teams make it. I know there's gonna be people in our comments who are like, "Oh, see, they're contenders." You don't make it this far as contenders, right? Like they got here because they are a solid, very strong baseball team. Do they have holes? Absolutely. Like, they aren't a huge payroll team. It's one of those things that everyone who also in the comments is like, well, when we get a new owner, I hate to break to you, no matter who you get here isn't going to lose money owning a baseball team. Cleveland is never going to be top 5, top 7, probably never a top 10 salary team because they're a bottom 5 team in overall revenue potential. Like they're always going to be a lower end payroll. So that's one of those things. Like this team though has been so well crafted and built that they were able to get to the ALCS and have some chances, some opportunities, and it's far from over. There's absolutely ways this team can turn it around. It just needs another timely hit. Like I said, if Josh Naylor's, instead of having 2 hits with no one on, if either of those ones to the gap happened, like this might have been a win. If Rocchio, the single before his strikeout, he actually swung and hit a pitch that was further out of the zone on that first hit. That was much further out of the zone than the one that was called for strike 3 there. So it's just, little points that could have helped push it forward. They just need to be a little bit better. And I look at that and I look at, the pen again, guys stepping up. Like Avila had to pitch. I know it was only one dude, but it's like Avila came in and did his job. Lively was fine. Morgan was spectacular. Heron, it was nice to see the positivity. Kate Smith was fantastic. There were positive performances and they had a crud ton of base runners. They just did not, with runners in scoring position and 2 outs, Hedges and Rocchio, both had 2 opportunities and Jose had 1. Like you had that many opportunities with runners in scoring position. The team was over 7 with runners in scoring position. Like that's why they lost. That's just plain and simply. We can talk about all the other points, and yeah, those other parts make it harder. But it's the over 7 with runners in scoring position, and it's great. Jose had that home run, but he was batting 130 before that home run. They need their superstar to be a superstar, and the Yankees kind of have the same thing with Judge. If we're being honest, like both teams, superstar has underperformed, has not stepped up with runners in scoring position, and then both hit kind of meaningless home runs late.
Judge's home run wasn't meaningless. That was a 2-run homer that made it 6-2. This was a 4-3 game in the 9th inning. If he doesn't hit that home run,
I know, but it was
4-2
with the way things were going. It wasn't quite meaningless, but I don't know. I guess at that point I was like,
you have the tying run up in the 9th inning after Jose's home run in the 9th. You have the tying run up if that home run doesn't happen.
we didn't know
that was not a meaningless homer,
but we didn't know at the time that that Jose was going to hit home run in the 9th. They had a 2-run lead. Getting an extra 2 runs is nice insurance, but it wasn't It
was a big home run. It was a big home run. It mattered. I'm going to say it mattered. I'm with you on the runners in scoring position thing. Like, yeah, and oddly enough, Josh's own Garrett Cole. The problem is he came to the plate with nobody on most of the time, which credits to the Yankees for doing that, for getting him to the plate, and some of that's on Jose too, right? Mm-hmm. But Josh came up with nobody on most of the time, and the one time he did was the one time he made a productive out instead of getting a hit. So yeah, if you reverse those situations, maybe it's a different ball game. So I guess I'll take some optimism from that. I was a little more doom and gloom from you for once.
You definitely came in a bit hot today. You definitely came in feeling you felt this game. You felt this game. This one hit you harder than maybe any game has this year, just in terms of our own little daily interactions.
Maybe. Well, just the way it unfolded, yeah. And I also don't want. We had this conversation off air yesterday too, and I was talking about how I don't know what the right word I'm searching for, and I couldn't find the right word yesterday. But I don't want to act like it's okay to settle for this, get into the ALCS, like it's not having enough more expectations because they got it, because it's so hard to get this far in the postseason. Yes. It's very hard, and there are no guarantees you come back and do it again next year. No. But the Guardians won 92 games. That was 6th most in baseball. You do not get lucky for 162 games. You have to be a good team to have the 6th best record in baseball. You have to be. It doesn't mean they're a perfect team, but they have enough pieces to be good. And let's remember too, Jeff, this team struggled against the White Sox in the regular season. So it's not like
the first time. The second time they did own them and ended up winning the series.
They swept them finally. But it's not like this isn't the old beef up on the White Sox 17 times in the season, right?
Yes. They beat good teams. They did in the regular season
series
against good teams.
And they've done very well this year at points when their back's been against the wall. Like when the Royals tied the division, or technically took it in August when they had the tiebreaker, they responded and the Royals went down.
They never got it back.
They never let it come back. And against the Tigers, they went down 2-1. They won 2 straight. And I know the Yankees aren't the Tigers. We know that, so don't come at me with that. but this team has responded when their back's against the wall. And I'll give Vogt credit for that, because your team takes on your demeanor. They look to you for your body language, how you handle things. Because if you start doing things out of character, you start panicking, they're going to start sensing that something's not right, or they're going to not believe in themselves. Maybe they're grown men. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm going to choose to believe the former, I suppose, maybe a little naively. Hopefully, Vogt and Tanner can get on the same page, and that's not a long-term issue. But Vogt's been pretty calm throughout this whole thing, and I still think they'll come back and they'll play well Progressive Field. Maybe they'll get one, and we'll see if they can get two. And ideally, the ideal plan, I think, was to win one of the two in New York. Then you only got to win two in Cleveland, and then have to go back to New York to win a chance to win the series in 2 games out there. That's not going to happen now, but yeah, they need Jose to come through too. I mean, he had the home run in the 9th inning off Luke Weaver, which is great because you got to hit Luke Weaver in this series. You're going to have to. But again, it was a solo shot, same as Josh, right? He came up empty when it didn't really matter. Jose's got to be better, for it's Jose. You texted me about his legacy. It's so hard to talk legacy about Jose, because for Cleveland,
he's always going to be great. Yeah.
Because he took hundreds of millions less to stay, and he's a great player, and Cleveland doesn't kind of thing doesn't happen to Cleveland baseball teams, right? So it's going to be hard to say this postseason's going to ruin all that, because it shouldn't. If you're letting it ruin all that, then I think you're going.
And that's not what I was quite saying.
I know, but
just because people are going to get mad at me, all I was saying is it's going to be like when people started to call out A-Rod back in the day. It's going to be that thing where he's going to be getting accused of being kind of a small stage guy. Yeah. And, that could affect things like Hall of Fame voting and the way he gets viewed for things like that. So that's what I was saying. I don't want people to think I was saying his legacy here is damaged.
It's tough to watch Jose not come through in these spots. A, because it costs you, but B, because we know how much he wants to win here. We know why he stayed, and we know how much it means to him. I think that's why it's even harder. Not just because we want him to come through, but because we know Jose is a guy that does want to win here, and he does want to be the guy that carries the team. So at some point, if they're going to come back in the series, again, we've said it every game this postseason. We've said it. He's going to have to be the guy. He's going to have chances with runners on, and he's going to have to get the big hit. But you could just record that and play me saying it 10 times again over the next couple of days if you want, because I think I've said the same thing every time this postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunities, and just the way the last two, we talked about Zips, said that and we'll get into that. I won't get into it, but that Clark Schmidt might be a better matchup than we thought. And there's other things going on. The Yankees don't have the deepest pen, and they've had to get into it a little bit more. I know there's the day off, but it's also at Cleveland to see Luke Weaver in back-to-back days. That's good. There's definitely positives to take from it. I don't want it to all be doom and gloom. It's frustrating, so that leads to more of it. And I also don't want people to think that I'm settling, hey, the ALCS is good enough. What I'm trying to say too is the idea that we can celebrate the year no matter what happens. It's been a good year. Do I want more? Absolutely. I don't want the season to end. I want them to keep going. Am I going to be happy with only the ALCS? No, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to be frustrated as heck. But I can also then take 2 steps back and it's still one of the 5 best years I've experienced as a fan.
Yeah, there's plenty of time to reflect on that later. Yeah. Right now, it's all about the postseason. Guardians are off on Wednesday, so we'll be back to talk about Game 3 in Cleveland. We're also going to probably discuss the Alex Cobb trade, because his career with Cleveland, maybe his MLB career is over, so we're going to kind of look back at that trade and see how it blew up in Cleveland's face. Honestly, that's a preview of what the show is going to look like. It blew up in Cleveland's face. It really did.
It didn't work in the postseason. It didn't work out the way it happened, but
it didn't work out in the regular season, Jeff.
I think it's one of the situations where they had to take a gamble because there just wasn't much out there. And unfortunately, it did blow up.
Well, we'll talk about that tomorrow and why I think you're wrong on that. So we'll go there and then
we can have that discussion.
Yeah, we'll get that discussion tomorrow. And then, if there's anything you want us to discuss, not really a mailbag, but if there's any topics you want us to throw in there on an off day between this playoffs, feel free to hit us in the comments with those as well.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Remember to rate and review. Make sure you're checking out us daily, win, lose, or, well, they don't draw on the ever. So, but we appreciate your time, your commitment, and how supportive you have been as this team continues the postseason. You can never take the postseason for granted. So let's just enjoy the good, the bad, and the mostly ugly. Thank you all again for being everydayers like John and Zeev, who can always count on for some positive, wonderful things, and David laying out in Britain, and go Guardians, go.